Okay, guys, we've been playing Evolve for the past week or so in this closed alpha period. Just want to sit down and have a chance to talk about it, see how we feel about it. Lucas, what do you think?
I think it makes a really good first impression. The whole 4v1 dynamic is something that you don't see in too many games. And I mean, it looks amazing and it plays pretty darn well.
Yeah, I think it has the best particle effects of any game right now, period.
That's a bold claim.
It's a nice metal to clip on Evolve. I like particle effects, but yeah.
I can confirm it makes a really good first impression too, because unlike the rest of you guys who got to play it at PAX, E3, this was the first time I've played it, just the past few days. And I think I came away enjoying it maybe more than some people like Tim.
I played it at GDC a while ago and then haven't played it in the interim and expected it to have changed, I think, more than it had. I still feel like Evolve is a game where I like the idea of it more than the actuality of playing it. Because when I boil the essence down to playing it, the 4 versus 1 idea, I think Lucas is right. It feels like it should be fun and full of like synergies between the abilities of the hunters and the abilities of the monsters and the different phases of it. But the reality of it, I feel, is just like chasing around an enormous tank that's like a kind of limitless bullet sponge and just spraying different coloured lights into it without any real kind of tangible feedback. I didn't get those sort of sensations of winning and kind of little victories and little moments of catharsis. I just felt it felt grindy to me.
Yeah, I mean, unlike Left 4 Dead, which of course Turtle Rock contributed to in a big way, you don't have those sort of intermittent victories and stories of like interacting with health kits and like interacting with doors and like healing yourself and managing gear and stuff like that. It's just very straightforward. I mean, it's about the movement and the chasing and getting that life bar down on the enemy.
The stories is the exact same thing, because with Left 4 Dead, when you had the director AI, there were so many kind of water cooler moments where you'd say, do you remember the bit in the tunnel when this happened, and then we got almost overrun, and having lots of different mobs to fight against, I think naturally created those sorts of narratives. But here, I struggled to think what stories I would tell beyond, do you remember that time we were shooting that big monster? I don't know, there was, I think in the game before the one we recorded, Lucas, you got killed by a boulder with the absolute last second, and that did feel like a pretty cool end to that game.
Yeah, that was a standout moment, and I think I agree in that I can't really envision myself playing this game for like 5 straight hours. Like, I think I would just get tired of the same, chase the thing that I can't really keep up with, and then once I lock it down, then I just sort of spray at the monster.
Well, I agree in like a first impression sort of sense, but I think that it felt to me like if you really got a group of people that you enjoyed playing with and you played the game a lot, there was a huge amount of depth for strategy in it. And there was a huge amount of depth to figure out ways that it would give you a leg up and wouldn't just feel like a bullet sponge. It's just a matter of it didn't seem to me like there would be almost enough content to make me want to play to that point where I understood it. There wasn't enough drawing me along there, at least from what I saw. But I think that the strategy of like, even just if we had known the map better, we would have known how to trap the monster better, but we hadn't had enough experience on that map to know those strategies.
Yeah. Do you guys think the hunters can, because to me, to strategize, you would have to split the team of 4 up into little kind of sub-fire teams to do specific roles, but there seems to be like, we haven't played a ton, but it seemed unclear as to whether we could operate autonomously like that, or we'd almost fail immediately.
Or just get crushed.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you kept getting eaten by some water creatures.
I was busy getting eaten by a toad, admittedly. That wasn't the strongest strategy.
I think exploring the way those abilities work together is going to be the make or break thing for this game, and that depends on how many classes there are in total, right, and how specific classes maybe work against certain monsters better than others. But I think, like, if you play Left 4 Dead, everyone is the same, right? You're just a character with fun dialogue, and you can kind of choose the way you outfit with weapons versus melee and that kind of thing, at least Left 4 Dead 2. But for the most part, your strategy comes from just knowing the map and how you progress through the map. In this game, it's going to be all about people really, really becoming familiar with their roles and outfitting the support in a certain way and the medic in a certain way and knowing when to use those abilities in a fight. But it is kind of worrisome that it might just end up being this is the one configuration or the best way to play each class, and then you're kind of just at a dead end and there's no playing around at that point.
I think that's what the alpha period's for, and that's what testing's for. I'm happy to call it certainly a better and deeper competitive game than Left 4 Dead. I mean, Left 4 Dead's versus mode was kind of an afterthought. I mean, in terms of the stuff you could do with hunter jumping from afar and like smoker grabbing and like the way certain ledges were programmed, that you could like move between that stuff in the environment was like very loose. It was just sort of available to you as a mode. It wasn't balanced for competitive play. I mean, here's what I like about Evolve as a hardcore FPS player, right? Like, movement is a big part of it. Like, the little stuff you do on ledges matters fundamentally. Like, your ability to master that and look for shortcuts and anticipate where the monster's going and use your hearing to anticipate which direction he's moving, that all counts, because you need to cut him off. Like, I think that's kind of what you guys discovered in that match, that like...
We chased you around too much.
If you're just in a singular...
As you were wailing on the power generator, but we were about half a mile, a virtual mile away.
Like, and that's tough, right? Because separating creates a risk. So, I don't know, I'm looking forward to seeing how the game evolves over time in terms of its metagame and strategies and stuff like that.
Spinning like a top as he listens to you.
And yeah, like, I mean, Wes, I totally expect there to be like great strategies, but I think those will either get balanced out very quickly or just adapt over time. You know, I hope that'll be the case.
The comparison to the Left 4 Dead versus mode, I feel like even though this is a much more polished, more intently designed thing than that, which was more of an afterthought, like you said, on the other hand, versus mode in Left 4 Dead, insane amount of variety in what can happen based on the AI programmer and just going back to the things Tim talked about, having like those little moments of victory on either side, right? Where you're going to be playing multiple tanks, multiple spitters, multiple smokers, blah, blah, blah. And you have all these little moments where playing through a match, something can happen totally differently. In this, you're always going to be chasing this one monster around a very specific, number of maps, half a dozen maps.
There's a reason why like time to kill matters in shooters, right? Because that fundamentally makes you feel how powerful a weapon is, and that's what I think creates a lot of the excitement. But the time to kill in this is like 10 minutes, right? To get before you get any sense of, beyond shooting, just some of the little kind of things that I couldn't even manage to shoot because they killed me. So.
Well, what do you guys think of the roles in general? Like, I thought I was playing the trapper in that role, and getting you with a harpoon was almost as satisfying as shooting a chunk of your armor off.
And it's important. I think the roles are really well designed. I think they've very carefully said, which weapon should belong to which character and which like special ability. The orbital strike for the assault, the mobile arena, I guess it is, like the big bubble shield that traps the monster. Like, those all feel critical. None of them feel sort of like ancillary to the experience and sort of tacked on. They feel very intentional.
And they kind of break the mold a little bit with what you think of as a stereotypical kind of like what each class has as a weapon. Like the medic, I love healing in games and playing medic, but the medic in this has a sniper rifle. At least the first one does, which was completely put me out of my comfort zone, where I never used sniper rifles, but I wanted that healing, and it didn't feel like they were forcing me into something. It felt like they were really trying to create a specific role on the team. Yeah. And maybe, Tim, you were mentioning earlier about like the idea of splitting up and like, is that a big risk? But maybe that's the reason that 2 of the 4 classes are more support roles. There's the support and the medic class. So maybe they designed it in a way that splitting off with the support with one person and the medic with another person, it actually can work. And maybe we just hadn't tried that yet.
Yeah, I think there are definitely strategies to discover within Evolve, but I share your guys' concerns. I'm almost wanting another layer there. I want like interesting common infected, like the equivalent of that, to just sort of interact with, and like fodder that I can shoot through. Whereas like the
monsters don't really do it.
Yeah, the wildlife in the environment, like they're just sort of in the way. The ones that are traps can be used meaningfully, strategically by the monster primarily, though. And I almost want some other layer, some other like environmental thing, like weather, or like some sort of, I know there is a little bit of like snow in some of the levels I think is toggleable, or maybe it's specific to a certain map, and that affects visibility. But other than that, like I just want some other layer of complexity other than, one big life bar sponge versus 4 interestingly designed classes.
I think you're right, because that's what will create those emergent stories, if there are other things that will happen and to interact with.
There was one game we were playing where it did start raining, but the rain didn't seem to affect anything. And actually, I think that's where the design of using the mobile arena as an item for the trapper, if that wasn't in the game, I think it would be a completely different experience and one I would not enjoy at all, because that creates those small little skirmishes like you were talking about that Left 4 Dead had. If we didn't have those moments, the only moments that I think of when I think back to the matches of Evolve I've played are when we trapped them and we had this fight that was really bloodthirsty, and then it was interspersed with these long walking sections where we were basically following Daisy and not really knowing what we were doing yet.
Daisy's OP.
Yeah.
I think we all agreed too that the end situation where when the monster hits level 3 was missing something, whether it was like an alternate objective for the humans, for the hunters to be able to win, or some kind of maybe trade-off for the monster, because it's just, okay, now we have to be locked in this one place and defend this thing, or just lose, or hope the monster wants to kill us, basically, which when we played a map all together, Evan deliberately stopped attacking the objective just to wait for us to show up so he could murder all of us, basically.
And then did completely unopposed.
Yeah, and then he did that. So it really feels like that third act part of the game, there's nothing... It really like discourages exploration from the map in that last phase, and it also encourages the monster to just stay away from you, level up as fast as possible, and then take the easy way out.
Yeah, I think part of what's affecting that criticism also is like we've seen so little of the game. I mean, I know, for a fact that there's a map, or maybe some maps have this as sort of a toggleable, separate victory condition that like you have. Once you reach stage 3 of the monster, you can like attack this like cage of scientists or something, and they like get released into the environment and they scatter. And if you kill a certain number of them, you win instead of the power generator. So that's a little bit interesting because you're running around and like you're trying to protect this like these scrambling NPC civilians. But again, like that's kind of all we know. We know there's one other monster called the Kraken that sort of has some flying abilities, has some more ranged abilities, but we haven't seen almost any other parts of the game. And it's
I'd like it to be two monsters at once, like Mothra and Godzilla, and then us.
And are they fighting each other at the same time?
Yeah, but it'd be pretty... They can have that idea for free.
Well, it's undeniably, it's a very unique experience. It's one I haven't really played in a first-person shooter setting, like that exact experience. And it's a really fun one. But it's kind of like what you were saying earlier, Tim, when we were playing, that it felt almost like a mode in a full game. And I'm really also interested to see what else there is within that game, because this Evolve seems to me like it would really, really benefit from not just this, like this being what they're doing for the alpha, and then having, monster versus monster mode, and having, 4 hunters versus 4 hunters maybe, or like, just what else they can bring along with it to keep that experience varied.
Yeah.
I'm also curious, do you guys see players switching between roles or picking one hunter or just the monster and then sticking with that? Because it seems like you do want to have maximum knowledge of how everything works for your specific role, but that could get kind of old. And as the monster, I feel like it'd be really lonely to just be playing by yourself all the time, knowing that you're playing against, a group of friends that's having a blast.
I would liken it to Battlefield, right? Another game with 4 classes.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Yeah.
I mean, if I play Sniper, I want to keep playing Sniper, but I only switch if there's like a specific combat situation where I need to resolve something, and like as an engineer by shooting tanks. But that isn't even possible in Evolve. So I would say I would expect most people to stick with one.
I think it depends on how much fun the progression system is. Like they have perks, they have unlocks you can get for improving your class. And if you're going to be able to level up an entire class in like maybe 4 hours or something, 6 hours of play, you're probably going to want to switch up. And I mean, same with like when you're playing a MOBA, a lot of people learn to play a specific role like support or carry or something. But if you're playing with a group, you want to be able to fulfill whatever the group needs. So sometimes you should have, a tank in your back pocket that you can pull out if your team needs a tank. I think the same for this. Like a lot of people will pick their class that they really like. They'll play assault. But if somebody says we need a medic, we don't have a medic on the team, somebody will say, oh, I've got a level 8 medic, that can jump in with that.
Yeah.
And what do you guys think of having the perks in the game? Like, it seems like nothing could compare with the double jump, the 200% jump height. Like, jumping in that game seems so crucial, and you get to use the jetpack so rarely to actually like benefit you in a chase, I feel like. Evan, you were telling me that they rebalanced the game from when you played it earlier, where you can jetpack up a ramp even if you're out of fuel.
Yep.
Like, that seems extremely necessary, but it still doesn't feel like enough to me.
Yeah, movement's a skill in the game for sure, and it seems like a disproportionately important skill, considering at a base level, an experienced monster, experienced Goliath at least, based on our time in the alpha, can move faster than the hunters, period. Over almost all terrain unless there's a ceiling over their head or something. Just because that jump really makes a big difference, especially if you're dropping, really accelerates you. So yeah, I think they've got a lot to look at. And it is a little bit concerning that, hey, we've seen very little of the game in terms of the variety of stuff. And yet also the game is very DLC friendly. It's very modular. The hunters, the monsters, and the maps are all interchangeable. What are they going to sell? Are they is the reason we haven't seen so much stuff that they're going to sell all these things interchangeably, piecemeal? I hope not.
I mean, we know there are going to be only 3 monsters at launch, which seems to me like kind of a small number. Like they maybe should have gone for 9 and just have them maybe have some overlap between them, but at least give you something to switch up the experience as a monster.
Yeah. All right. Well, seems like it's still an interesting shooter, one that we appreciate and have some reverence for.
It feels really good.
Yeah, and it's
the
gorgeous.
The movement and the shooting all feels top of the line, for sure.
And in terms of games that take advantage of hardware, I think this one is at the top right now, until we haven't played Far Cry 4 yet, I guess, and the Assassin's Creed games and whatnot, and Batman early next year, but that's another good reason to like it. But yeah, some questions still as we continue playing this alpha period.